Hey, everybody, welcome to our post show where we sit around in our orange chairs and we talk about everything that we just experienced. My name is Steve. I'm one of the pastors on staff here, and I am joined with Layla and Paul and Austin. We are excited to be able to break down the service, have a little analysis of it, talk through it a little bit. But first, we want to give a shout out to moms for Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day out there. I'll kind of give each of you an opportunity if you want to say something either about your wife or your mom or whatever. This is our chance. Since we have microphones, we can say something, whatever we want, right? I'll start. First, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom. I already saw her this morning here at church, but I want to say it again. I love you. Happy Mother's Day. Also, shout out my wife. She is an amazing mom to my kids. I am so grateful for her and everything that she does. So I love you and Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And Layla, by the way, you are representing all moms here this morning, being the only mom. So Happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you. But yeah, ditto to what you said. I love my moms. I am very, very blessed, and I hope that you both have a wonderful day today. And just shout out to all the moms out there. Being a mom is the most rewarding and hardest job I've ever had in my life.
I want to do a special shout out to pastors' wives who are moms because their Mother's Day always gets postponed at least either it's super early or later. And and I had to play and do everything this morning, and so Carrie's just like, "Yep, I'm used to this." Where I'm taking off first thing in the morning. So yeah, shout out to the pastors' moms, mothers, and everything, and of course to my wonderful wife and mom.
Yeah, which speaking of that, my mom's currently working right now, making what's happening right now actually happen. So happy Mother's Day to you, Mom. I love you. And I'm excited to be able to celebrate you today.
Cool. That was nice. That was a nice little Mother's Day segment. You said being a mom is the most rewarding and hardest thing you've ever done. What are sometimes those things the same thing? Or are they distinct?
Like, can I feel those feelings at the same time? All the time.
All the time.
I love you and I want to murder you. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like a battle every day, most moments, right?
Yeah.
Especially when having experiences with my wonderful children. Husbands, too. You guys are great. And one day, Austin, you'll be a wonderful husband as well.
I'm sure you will.
But yeah, lots of pulling between I love you and I want to choke you.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's Mother's Day, so do I get to act out on my
Did your
thoughts?
kids do anything special for you already this Mother's Day? Or do you think they have something planned? Or
They don't know it yet, but they will be helping me with landscaping duty today. I did give them a little glimpse of their future afternoon. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's fun. All right. Well, it's kind of so a lot of times on Mother's Day, we pause whatever series or services we're doing and we do something that's kind of fluffy, maybe, Mother's Day themed, or it's about how much we love moms, whatever. And today, Perry just brought it. Like it was not catered to trying to make us feel good necessarily as we wrap up this Badlands. Although at the end, like I think there is relief, right? Like we talked about relief. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. And there is a happy ending to this story. But as we go through these times of life, these Badland times of life, it can be very challenging. And so really there was one major theme or point that Perry talked about today that we're going to kind of lean into, because I want to kind of take it a different direction and kind of dissect it a little bit differently. Here's a couple of Perry's slides that he put up. He had one that said, when we choose faith, God will give us relief. He had another slide that said, when we are waiting for relief, right? So if we go back, when we choose faith, God will give us relief. But when we're in that time of waiting for that relief, man, we have to either lean into the faith, We have to continue to choose, because it's not just a one choice and then you're done. We have to continue to lean into faith, or we can lean into bitterness. We can choose bitterness. So this is kind of where I want to bring the conversation and discussion today is like, what motivates us sometimes, or why do we choose one or the other? If anybody's like me, there are times in life where I know I've leaned into that bitterness. I've chosen that. And it's really hard from a perspective stepping back, hindsight, you question, like, why did I ever do that? Like, there's a better path, but why do we choose bitterness? So I kind of want us to kind of have a raw, real conversation about why do we make some of the choices that we make?
I think it has to do with perspective and trying to take the longer view of things. We are blessed with hindsight, like you just said, and it never makes sense in the moment. It never will. And so that is always going to be our initial response is, why is this happening to me? I'm so great. Why would something bad be happening to me? And that is actually the one thing about the whole story of Job. He never gets why. That God never bothers. God just shows him who he is. And Job stops asking why. And we always like to see the epilogue, the bow on the present, that he gets this. I'm like, sorry, that took years to rebuild. And still years of struggle. And yes, God was faithful in the end. God will keep every single promise he makes. Not everyone's going to be this side of death. Mm. And that's really hard for us to accept because we can't see things the way God does.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, I think it is that lack of being able to see things from the way that God is able to see things, and how everything is able to work and work in this world. I think because we don't have that perspective and because we can't see the full big picture in the moment, bitterness can be probably the easy thing to be able to do, or the easy thing to be able to have, because it is the emotions that we are feeling during times when we're in the Badlands, during times when things get rough. It becomes much more difficult to be able to see and be able to reconcile with the goodness of God's character. When you read about that and the end of Job, just the answer is God is good. The answer is God's character is good, and being able to understand that, to take a step back from things, is so incredibly difficult to be able to do.
So what are some ways that that maybe you guys have either struggled with or found that help you maintain a perspective that does not force your heart to turn bitter?
I think for me, it's trying to be disciplined and diligent in practicing gratitude, and trying to find like goodness in my daily walk of life, which I have a really high positivity, but I'm really bad at those simple concepts. It's really easy to get consumed in nitpicking all the little things, like the microscopic things, the things that don't really matter. And it's so funny because I see my kids do this all the time too. And I'm like, don't sweat the small stuff. Just shake it off. It's not a big deal. But I do it all the time. And it's like, it's a slippery slope, because once you get into that mindset of it's more on the negative side, then you can really, stay more on that negative side versus the positive. So that'd be my first thought. And sounds really simple, but it's really challenging. And I think I commend those that can do that, like without, not even thinking. I had to be very, very intentional of trying to stay in a positive mindset. It's so easy for me to spiral.
So keeping that perspective for to not only look through your own trials of faith, what God has already brought you through, but then also look and see what he's doing. Like stories of faith that you have all over the world. And sometimes it's actually it shuts you up pretty quick, and you see some of the real struggles going on up there. I mean, we support ministries for human trafficking and all of the evil in this world, people who are in the thick of this fight, and you're just like, I stubbed my toe and I'm whining about it. It's that sort of thing of trying to keep that perspective and just asking for it.
I know you've been in, you have a history of being in ministry. Have you personally witnessed and got to go and see and be a part of ministries outside that give you kind of an anchor in those perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, in some of my, especially early formative years in ministry, it was, say, soon with mission trips and things I was doing even in college and before that. And it's always great in the moment, but you have to go back to it. It's especially we live fairly soft lives here as American Christians, and trying to actually see real struggle. It's, until you've actually witnessed it, you can read about it and see stories all you want, and until you've been in the mud with someone with there. And I'm still a pretty soft, like I have not much to stand on as far as that goes. Is I've never had to worry about getting killed for my faith. And there's people who refuse to bow to any other king but God. And I've been very blessed to have a choice, and and that choice is not choosing God or my life. And so it's always just that sort of, and say, I've never been in those positions, but I know that they're out there. And so it can always help to kind of, okay, you're not asking as much for me as I want to think that you are.
Yeah, for sure. That makes me think of, for a long time, I have been connected with a ministry over in northern Thailand that I'll tell you kind of the real condensed, shortened version of their story. There was a missionary who went to Thailand, and she ended up meeting somebody from the region, and they fell in love, got married, moved back to the States, started having some kids, and he came to know the Lord, felt compelled in his heart to go back and reach his people. His people is the Shan people. The Shan people they're kind of an unclaimed people group. They don't have a country or land of their own, but they're a very large people group that live mostly in Burma and northern Thailand, part of Laos, and southern China. And they're consistently and constantly at war with the Burmese army. So the Shan people and Burmese army always at war. And the Shan army has become very corrupted because of the drugs in the Golden Triangle region, whatever. They ended up demanding soldiers from every village and every house. And what ends up happening a lot is they basically just give their kids. So their oldest boy, they send their boys to fight this war. So there's boy armies happening right now. Like this is happening today, right? There are kids being taken from homes, and we're talking kids as young as 4 years old, 5 years old, living in the jungle and being given a weapon and being told to go fight. And this man and his wife, his name is David. David and Paula felt so compelled to go reach their people, and they ended up, through some connections of their own, they ended up smuggling out 12 of these boy soldiers, getting them across the border into Thailand, and they started an orphanage there. I had a really cool opportunity. I had been connected with them, heard their stories, got to know them, fell in love with the mission and what they're doing. But I got the opportunity to go and film them and create a short documentary style video telling their stories. And we're talking stories like I was taken from my family, and my parents were murdered in front of me, and I was abandoned on the streets, and then they've been taken in. And it's so heart-wrenching. Like, all their stories are just so, they just move you, but they put into perspective that there are things in this world, struggles in this world, that we are so blessed we don't have to deal with. And it really helped shape who I am, how I see the world, how I hopefully have instilled that in my kids. But we still get back to these points where we still feel like we're struggling, right? We can see this world, this broken world, and know that there are people who are struggling so much worse than us. And for whatever reason, we're selfish beings. We take things personally. We get into these moments of the Badland that feel very, very real for us. And yet we still sometimes choose bitterness over our faith.
Well, and they are real, like say, just whatever we're struggling with, they are real. God has us here for a reason. We're very blessed to be here, but He still has us here for a purpose, and we owe it to Him to figure out what that is. And and it doesn't mean like, oh, I can't. No, we can whine about anything. We're masters at creating ways to whine, but we still are dealing with some real problems, even if they're not quite fighting off child armies or children.
And we're still faced with that choice.
Yeah.
When we're in those moments, do we choose faith or do we choose bitterness? So what are some things that maybe you guys do that help you lean into your faith on a daily basis? Because I know for people watching, for people talking about this, sometimes it's those little practical things that other people do. Be like, oh, that's a good idea. That might help me.
Well, obviously, pray. Spending some time in prayer, and I like to start off my day with the Bible app, doing some form of devotional. But lately, I've been really enjoying reading different like self-help books, especially ones that are Christian based. There's just a lot that I gather, and having at least an hour set aside where I can just do some reading and just have some intentional reflection and of some of my own thoughts on things. And so those are my things.
Awesome.
For me, it's about finding those things to remind myself about God's character and who He is. I think if you read throughout, especially a lot of stuff that happened in the Old Testament, you see the Israeli people consistently forget about what God had done for them and them turning away from that. So finding those things to be able to remind myself about who God is, Bible, prayer, but also another powerful thing, just because part of the things that I get to do here is through music and stuff. Especially with this topic of what we talked about, there's actually been a couple of songs we've introduced relating directly to this, talking about what we introduced today, Hard Fought Hallelujah, but also the bridge of what we did for the song on Easter, Lord of All. It's really directed towards a lot of this when the world starts breaking down. What are you exactly going to turn to? So reminding myself about that and using potentially a form like music or prayer or the Bible, I think is a really good thing to remind yourself about who God is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we often overlook that. Israel witnessed God's power in some really amazing and miraculous ways, and yet they continuously kind of turned away and then came back and turned away. So having those reminders of God's character, who He is, how He has continued to bless you is good.
Yeah, I just try to change up a routine, because prayer, I try to follow a certain model, follow it after the Lord's Prayer. Which is a good practice to have. But then I'll just spend certain days in prayer. I'm like, God, I am asking You for nothing. I am instead focusing on everything You've already done and just thanking You for it. And it kind of just changes up the perspective of whatever problems I have. Because some of these quote unquote problems I have are actually an offshoot of a blessing that He's already given me. And that means it's not really as much of a problem.
Yeah. Now, Paul, I know you're a runner and you do like marathon stuff. Do you pray while you run? Is that a moment, or are you so focused on just trying not let your body hurt?
Yeah, through the first 18 miles it has. But if you ever want to see raw humanity, go to about mile 22 of a marathon, and you will see raw humanity. And
all right, let us know the next time you're running one. We're all going to be there, mile 22, cheering you on.
I think the Kalamazoo Marathon's going on today, so you can go. It's not going to be a pleasant sight, but it's there.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. That's our time for this morning. We've got to wrap things up. We're so glad that you joined in with us during this conversation for our service. If you have questions or comments or need to connect with us in any ways, we'd encourage you go to our website, my3c.org, and click on connect, and you're going to be set up with all the ways that you can connect with us. We're so happy that you joined us. We will see you again next time.